Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor, and today we are talking about after sales. Now, this is always a crucial element of a franchise dealer's operation and dealers in general, really. It's an area of the business that's rarely glamorous, but can be hugely beneficial to a dealer's bottom line. Joining me to speak more about this is Marketing Delivery's Chief Executive Jeremy Evans and boss of Wessex Garages, Chris Wiseman. Hello, both.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you both on. It's really good to see the pair of you. Now, this is a massive, massive topic, but it's an interesting one, isn't it? Really, because Chris, let me turn to you firstly on this because service has always it's always been the department that covered the bills, really, and enabled the dealership to stay afloat, I suppose you could say. Do you think that's still the case? I mean, is after sales still as important to dealership these days, would you say?
I think more so than ever. Yeah, I mean, long gone are the days of us looking at absorbance of of 100 or 80% or anything like that now. But there are so many factors coming in which makes after sales more important that we just have to really sort of take this methodology of working harder, but we achieve a bit less, unfortunately. We're impacted by the cost of franchise. That's primarily what the problem is in absorbency. Courtesy cars, customers' expectations. We've got service plans. We've really become good at selling service plans, but of course, that then impacts on what we can retain out of labour sales. And that's not keeping pace with what we're having to pay for technicians and recruitment and everything else. So the cost base is significant, it's going up, and we're having to squeeze more and more out the margin. But you add on to this what ZEV mandates doing to supply of cars means that the sales departments have become even more unpredictable, more susceptible to market change all the time. So after sales, it has always been the stability in the business, and I think it always will be. Yeah, it's got to change, but I'm hoping that manufacturers will also change in complexities of some of their programs and make that easier. But cost base is massive. Cost of franchise is a huge issue, and more so in after sales than any other department, to be honest.
Mm. Chris, some of your franchises, they've been building EVs for quite some time. And as we know, more and more brands are having to, they're having to sell more EVs. Is this adoption, is it causing more headaches in after sales departments, do you think?
Yeah, it's headaches, it's challenges, as they always are. I'm not convinced that the headaches are any more than the problems that I've just mentioned. But certainly, when it comes to training, that's an issue for us and OEMs. The problems we get with an EV are totally different to the problem you get with a they're non-mechanical problems anymore because of the reliability issues. But when you start talking about software issues, then that's the problem. Longer term, yeah, the time between service intervals that will impact without a shadow of a doubt. We'll see longer gaps within services. We've got to be careful that we don't just manufacture reasons for customers to come in. We've got to put value around that. But I think we've got I don't know, north of 35 million ICE cars running around on the roads at the minute. So there's still plenty to get our teeth into. So I don't think that the full impact, even with the brands that we represent, has been seen just yet. But of course, that's going to be a slow, gradual curve with the uptake of EVs as we progress over the next probably 10 years.
Yeah. I think it's one that we're all going to be watching. We're keeping a very close eye on, that's for sure. Just before I come to you, Jeremy, I just want to just ask you this, Chris, very quickly. What do you think the key elements are in keeping workshops busy?
Um, it all revolves, especially if you've got a business like ours. We've been established 35 years, so we've got a really strong customer base, really strong database. So everything revolves around having a really robust process in terms of communicating with the staff with the customers that we've got already. I mean, that's key. Then working alongside that by making sure we retain and upskill the technicians. Those are the biggest challenges we face in making sure that they're busy. We can sell the hours we've got currently without a problem. Technician shortage is a problem at the minute, but I think that methodology of having a really robust contact process in place is key to us. It always has been, and we tend to have historically thrown more and more money at that with, I know, contact centres and people specifically making calls, and we just try and simplify that and make that a much better process, really.
Yeah, as Chris said, that database is the kind of lifeblood of a business like his, and keeping that clean and up to date is fairly crucial. I sat in on one of our reviews with Chris and his team a couple of months ago, where we talked about the number of calls being made to people who don't own the car anymore, and how we could help, how we could pick that up and look at dates with DVLA and the various different agencies that record that stuff, because we don't want people in dealerships wasting time phoning people who haven't got a car anymore. We don't want to send emails out to people who don't own the car or have had the MOT done elsewhere, because it just winds people up if they receive emails that are inaccurate or they're not relevant to them because the dates held are wrong. So we do as much work probably with our clients on keeping that data up to date, so that when we do send the comms out and the contact plan that Chris alluded to kicks in, it's with accurate data. And that data revolves around things like what type of vehicle is it. So just kind of going back to the EV conversation, if we know the customer is driving an EV, then it's maybe a different contact plan from the ICE car customer. So we can segment that. We can look at the data, see what it says about that customer, and pick them up. Now, at the minute, thankfully, there are lots of recalls floating around and warranty works floating around on EVs. So actually, they're coming into the workshops probably more often than ICE cars at the moment. But once that settles down and the technology settles down, I guess then we're into how do we contact people at the right time, not just around the key dates and ownership, but actually what type of vehicle it is, because that contact plan for an EV customer will be different to a contact plan for an ICE customer.
So Jeremy, I mean, what does a good service reminder process look like? Because it's a very easy thing to say, isn't it? A service reminder process. But what do you think a good and effective one actually does consist of?
Well, I guess if you think of the kind of multiple touch points and how busy people are, you can't rely on the kind of one shot 28 days before the service is due anymore. So we typically advise starting 60 days in advance of any due date, because we know that people are busy, and actually to get them booked in when it's convenient to them. And also, as Chris alluded to, if workshops are full and you can sell all the hours and there actually aren't enough technicians to be able to turn on extra hours, then you can't run the risk of going too late with that service reminder and then having a lead time and not being able to match the customer's needs in their time scale, because then you will encourage them to go and look elsewhere to see if they can. So we try and start it early. We start at typically, as I say, 60 days before a due date. We try and combine reminders together. So if we know the service and MOT is due within 2 or 3 weeks of each other, we send out one reminder, try and get the customer in for one visit rather than two. With a lapsed customer, if we can overlay some recall data to that as well, then again that's a good way of bringing the customer in for things that are required and are in their benefit, kind of duty of care, rather than just trying to get them in and get it on the ramp and get the wheels off. So there's a number of different elements and a number of different data sources to overlay. So some manufacturers have after-sales programs that provide data to contact people. You have your vehicle health check systems in play as well. So it's kind of multi-layered, really. There's different sources of data to bring in, overlay, and find those kind of moments that are most important to contact a customer, and make it as easy as possible to look after that customer without them feeling they have to do the hard work of finding 2 or 3 different places to get work done at different times during the course of the year. So it is really about keeping that data as up to date as possible, overlaying all the sources, and then having that kind of robust plan, multi-point, 60 days, 42 days, 21 days, a contact center with a call pot that shows you which emails and text messages the customer's received. When it goes lapsed, not giving up on it, trying it again 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks later, rolling it to next year and trying it again when it's 10 months lapsed. Those are all the kind of things that we drop into contact plans to make sure we've got as much chance as possible of retaining that customer.
Yeah. For my final question, I'm going to ask the pair of you. Chris, let me just come to you first on this. Do customers, do they actually respond to emails and text messages, do you find?
Well, the simple answer is yes. But if you delve into it, I suspect most people out there don't really know what good looks like at the moment. We certainly weren't aware of it in the past, because all the things that Jeremy touched on, we're bringing information from DMSs and various manufactured OEM systems, and plus a bolt-on system as well. So it becomes very, very difficult to see what's actually working and what isn't working. And if you don't know how you're going to measure it, then how do you know what good looks like? The simple fact is, working with a combined system, we have one single point of truth now, which makes it a lot easier to monitor, a lot easier to measure it. We can see what click-throughs we've got, what the opening rate is, what the click-through rate is. We can measure that by individual branch. We can see how effective it is. We can see realistically what the most effective time is to send an email for a customer to open it. So we can get really granular on it now and see what actually works and what doesn't work. And then, of course, once you've got that, you can start setting benchmarks and KPIs as to how good or bad, even down to individual team members are at making the calls off the back of those. But the simple fact is, email and text messaging SMS is very effective for us. Of course, it's very cost effective for it as much as anything else. And the better you get those systems and the more accurate you get those contact times geared up for the customer, whether it be the single point of fix, which is the MOT, or whether it be the service and how you attack that, then the better you get at that, of course, the easier it is for your teams on the front desk, because the phone is ringing or the emails are coming in without all that necessity of outbound calls and who do I call next and when am I calling. That's still a part of the process because people still want to get spoken to. But we look at over 60% of our emails that we send get open. And we know that's even now is not off the back of a super clean database, which of course is the other thing that we alluded to then. You've got to have absolutely clean data to work with.
Sure.
And the better you get at looking at this really at a granular level, then you start to see what good looks like in your organisation. So, in answer to your question, they open emails back.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting point was, Jamie, I think it'd be nice if you just comment on this, is having a product or a service which you can adapt your offering. You can look at that granular data and you say, well, perhaps that's not working. Let's try this. It's having that ability to change your existing processes and create better solutions, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. The flexibility, we've kind of built that into the start, really, when in the early days of the business, when we were kind of using third-party software and trying to make it work for automotive, that's a little bit we didn't have. And since we've kind of built and ran our own software, that flexibility is built in. I remember my first job in automotive was as a service marketing manager with Bristol Street in Bromley, and I had a call centre of people that we'd set up, and we had Kerridge version 7 with all these reports, and even then we were trying to find these touch points and bring the customers in, and that was sticking things in the post and making phone calls, and we've updated the technology to match where consumers are. People still want to speak to people on the phone for these, especially when it comes to service. I've got an email about my car. I need to talk to them about the squeak or the rattle or the bing bong noise that I get when I get into it. So the telephone element of it is still really important, but you can use the kind of email and SMS part of it to kind of get the customer ready, so that when that call comes, if it's an outbound call from someone like Chris's contact centre, the customer's already had a couple of emails. They know that it's coming. They've already started thinking about it. It makes it a much easier booking process to get them in for it. Or if the customer phones in, it's with enough advance notice that if there is any extra work that needs doing to their car or looking at on their car, it can be planned in accordingly. So yeah, it's kind of all of the above really. It's measuring it, monitoring it, tweaking it, changing it. It may be workshop to workshop, and maybe one workshop has a really long lead time, and we need to nudge the process out a little bit further. It maybe another one is a newer workshop with a bit of time and space, and we can go hard a bit later on it. So that flexibility is built into everything we do, and we kind of let the data and the results and the customer interaction dictate what the correct process is for that location.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. I feel as though we could talk about this all day, but but some really interesting stuff there about after sales, and it's some key reminders there on what dealers can be doing better. So so for today, thank you very much, the pair of you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
There you go.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye bye.